Hello everybody, Damien from Flowforge here. Today we are going to be talking about Jigenomics. What is Jigenomics, you ask? It is the application of skill in a field. However, we're actually just borrowing the word today. We're going to talk about something similar and related. How you can acquire power through the union of opposites. And how you actually skillfully go about this on a day-to-day basis. Now, before we jump into that, I want to recommend that you get notes out. I also want you to understand that this applies to any scope in life. So this can apply to a simple workflow, a simple task, or it could apply to a goal that lasts for years. In fact, it can apply to your whole life. Let's dive into it. This mental framework will help you obtain power. That's what this is about. We know that the brain learns best through essentially making connections between seemingly unrelated things. Where if it can make a connection from A to B, and A and B seem unrelated, this is strength, this is power, this is real growth and learning right here. This is where you remember the most, and this is where you discover new skills, right? Like this is skill acquisition because it's new. And that's where all the power in life is in the new thing. But, balance. Obviously, old, boring things work. And so I made a video about this recently, how, there's kind of two sides to life. There's the portion of excitement and fantasy, and then there's the reality that a lot of things are just very boring. Life is kind of a drag, just day in, day out, you clock in, you clock out. That's what work is. And that's what skill acquisition feels like too. So understand that there's a middle ground between these two things. But if you want to reach this middle ground, you can't just be kind of hyped and kind of bored at the same time. That's not how it works. Like this is something about balance that people fundamentally misunderstand. They think that balance is doing two things at once. They think balance is like you're over here and you're over here at the same time and you're allocating resources to both. That is not balance. That is distraction, because that is the opposite of what focus looks like. Focus is pouring all of your attention. It's basically when you get all of your neurons to fire on one thing. When every single part of you with all of your being is focused on this one thing, is basically looking at this one thing and playing with this one thing. And you're just pouring effort and attention and intention into this one thing. That is focus. If this is distraction, then what's the alternative? Like, how do you get the best out of both? And this is something that we see all the time in life, is there's always two sides to every coin, right? And you want the value from both. You don't just want to pick one, because they need each other. Like that's where the power is when they come together. So I'm going to give you a framework for dealing with this confusing conundrum of I can only focus on one thing, but I need both things if I actually want to become powerful. You're actually better at this when you have ADHD. I'm basically giving you the guide on how to min-max having ADHD right now. This is kind of like your class in a video game. It's basically made for this. However, you still have to grow in the skill of doing this. So a normal person is really good at focusing on one thing. They're good at focusing on one thing, and then they can grab a few things here and there and add them to their chemical reactions. Variety is where chemical reactions happen, which is where power is spawned, basically. So they have a few chemical reactions, they keep going on their skill tree, and cool, great, dandy, right? Like they take a good path. This is the neurotypical. It's a good playstyle. It's a really good playstyle. It's even, it's well balanced. You are not that. When you have ADHD, you have a harder playstyle where it's easier to make mistakes. That's how you want to think about this. So that's your nerf, is it's easier to make mistakes. It's harder to play this game. But if you get good at it, and this is what Jigenomics is, you will have stronger chemical reactions than the average person. And this will also lead to some issues which you're going to have to learn how to deal with as well. So what this looks like is instead of splitting your efforts between two things, you focus completely, hyper-focus on one thing at a time. And then we have to take a break to talk about criticality points. This is what the bell curve of success looks like. It's you start out, you don't really know what you're doing. You probably have like a boost in the beginning where it's like, oh, look at this. Now I know what I'm doing. And you have like, this is the excitement phase, this is the honeymoon phase. And then you get to this part where it's boring. And this is where most people with ADHD quit. So you can't quit here. You have to make up your mind that you're going to commit and you're going to keep yourself accountable. You're going to make accountability systems. You're going to find people to hold you accountable. You are going to overcome the resistance and keep getting back on the horse. That's what focus is. If you fall off the horse, just get back on the horse. Just remember, I'm supposed to be doing this, so I'm just going to get back on the horse. Like, just because you fell off doesn't mean that you can't get back on. You can. Doesn't matter how long it's been in between the two times when you remembered. But this is where most people with ADHD quit. And then there's this long, boring slog, and it feels like nothing's getting done. And you're just working on a project or trying to grow in a skill or trying to make more money or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, boom, it blows up overnight. And it's because all of this accumulated and came together. You can think of this as like an appreciating asset. It's appreciating in value. And then it just sort of clicks and it all comes together and you have this massive explosion of growth. I've experienced this. For me, it was when I was in monk mode. It's when I was basically just studying 24/7 and spending a lot of time meditating. And I got to a point where I had this burst, and then there was a plateau, and then I had another burst. And that next burst was intense. And that's the thing, is this always happens over and over. You go up at first, you have like a little boost of excitement in the beginning, then you have the long, boring slog. This is the valley, the shadow of death. And then you have another burst that is much bigger than the first one, and then you plateau again. And then you just keep doing this. And you keep doing it, and you keep doing it. And every time, the plateau gets longer. So these are like levels in a video game. And then, in order to go up to the next level, you also need to introduce outside influence. Like, you're going to have to experience other skills and other play styles in order to get this nourished and primed for chemical reaction. But this point where it tips, this is the criticality point. The time in between where it starts and it stops. And you'll notice, if you look at graphs of how people wound up getting a ton of money, it always happens at 75% of the way. Like 75% of the way is typically when this criticality takes off. And remember, this is for every scope. So this can happen in one day. This can happen in like you're learning a skill, and that's like that first initial boost, right? And so it's like you learn a lot in one day and you get super hyped, and then the next day it's like more boring. And then maybe for a week you become obsessed and you have like a week where you're boosting up, and then it becomes more boring for many, many weeks. And then you have a month, and then it's many, many months. Like, this is how it works. Jigenomics weaponizes this. Now, you've heard me say, like, in order to have powerful chemical reactions, in order to have real skill acquisition, in order to min-max having ADHD, you need other formulas and other factors. This is like the whole, diametrically opposed. You need this and you need this. The proper way to get both is to focus on two things at a time, and that's it. You focus on two things at a time. Then, what you do is you basically play ping pong, where you focus on thing one until you hit your first criticality point. Then you switch to thing two. And then what this looks like is you start with thing one, you bounce over to thing two after you hit the criticality point. And you'll feel it. You'll know what it is. It's the flow state. It's the thing that's like explosive and dopaminergic, and it's like I see the world completely differently now, right? As you're learning a skill or as you're thinking about things. And then after you have the criticality point on the other skill, you jump over to the other one. And then you keep doing this back and forth between these two skills. And guess what? This process is the same. It's also an exponential curve, which means that this process right here will hit a criticality point. And this is the union of opposites. This is when these two things come together and they finally make sense and they just like work together in harmony. And this is like the super flow state. And this is life-changing. Like, I've been through this. This is completely life-changing. It feels like reality just moves out of the way for you, is kind of what it feels like. And it's just like you're just like flowing over the course of more than a few days. And then guess what? It's going to plateau as well. So when you have this chemical reaction, you can apply the exact same mental framework that I just gave you. Switch to something else. And then learn that and have the back and forth ping pong Jigenomics of that, and then jump back to it. And this is how you focus. So this is the ADHD strat, is to focus on two things instead of one, because it's easier for your brain to do. And then to basically play ping pong with yourself, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then once you have that, you do it again with another skill. And then you want them to be connected. Like, you want to try and find things that are connected right here, where it's like there is a strong, somewhat connection that can be made. For example, maybe if you're a programmer and an artist, you focus on programming, and then you focus on art, and then maybe you switch to modeling and some sort of scientific field, right? It's like, that's kind of similar to coding. You could see how they might help each other. And these two things, you could see how they help each other as well. And so then these things are going to create strong chemical reactions with each other across the gap. This is how you min-max having ADHD. This is how you compile all of your skills into something extremely powerful. This is how you uncover who you are. But you have to be intentional about it. That's the key. You have to be intentional. And you have to be willing to get back on the horse when you fall off the horse. And you have to know exactly what you're focusing on. And you have to know what your goal is. So the goal is, I'm going to focus on this until I hit criticality. And then I'm going to focus on this until I hit criticality. And then once I hit criticality for both of these things, I'm going to focus on these two skills. And I'm going to do them. And then I'm going to switch back. Or I'm going to switch to something else. Right? Like, because you don't have to switch back. Because remember, it's harder every time you go up a level. Maybe it's diminishing returns at that point. Maybe you just want to switch to something else. Maybe you want that to chemically react with all this. That's cool. That's fine. That's good playstyle. It's up to you. But this framework helps you grow in skill and helps you create power. And this union of opposites right here, this is transformation. This is a rebirth. This is like the old you dies and a new you emerges. This is like your brain is being rewired and you are passing through into a new life. You're passing through into a new perspective where everything is completely different. So if this is what you want, if this is the transformation you want, then this is what you want to focus on. Jigenomics. I didn't get to touch on everything I wanted to touch on today. If you would like more stuff like this, go ahead, like and subscribe. And go ahead and click that link in the description, the first one. That's for a free mentorship call with me. After that, it's $50 if you decide you want to keep going. I can teach you more stuff like this. I can share my skill sets and my knowledge with you, and we'll grow. You can have this transformation. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. It means a lot to me. I appreciate you guys so much. Peace.